around at SNHU hosting an event like this. So we're really excited to have you all here. As I mentioned, please continue to introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to learn where you're joining us from and your connection to SNHU. My name is Tyra Davey. I am the Associate Dean of Science at SNHU Global Campus. I support our online environmental science and geosciences programs, and I'm so excited to be hosting this first GIS Day celebration here with you all. So thank you for being here. We will be recording this session. Before we begin, we'd like to share a bit about our dedication to accessibility at SNHU. Your experience here at SNHU is important to us. It is our policy and our practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation, design, or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, you can please call or email the appropriate accessibility centers. For our online students, that is oac@snhu.edu, or you can call 866-305-9430. For our campus students, it's CAC@snhu.edu, or you can call 603-644-3118. And for our faculty or staff, you can contact hr@snhu.edu. Thank you. So thank you all for joining us today. GIS Day is an annual worldwide event that's held every November, celebrating Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, the technology and its role in solving real-world problems. This event has been initiated by Esri 26 years ago, so back in 1999. GIS Day provides a platform for people to learn about and engage with GIS through events like workshops, presentations like this one, and competitions. GIS Day showcases how GIS technology is used in diverse fields, including environmental protection, healthcare, transportation planning, and social equity. It also serves as an opportunity for GIS professionals and enthusiasts to share their work and for the general public to learn about the power and potential of GIS. So we're so excited that you're here with us to learn more today. Wonderful. So at SNHU, we've partnered with Esri to bring their powerful GIS tools and technologies into the classroom. That's why I'm so excited to have two speakers from Esri join us today. If you haven't heard of Esri, they're a fantastic organization, brings the leading mapping and spatial analytics software designed to support mission and business objectives of organizations across the globe. They are the industry leaders in GIS. Esri creates tools that help people understand the world through maps and data. And ArcGIS, their primary software, is used by 70% of the largest global companies, 95% of the largest national governments, and 80% of the largest cities. So whether you're studying environmental science, urban planning, public health, or business, ArcGIS and the tools that support it can help you ask really important questions, uncover patterns, and share your findings in a really meaningful way. Used by organizations and researchers and communities around the globe, this technology makes it easy to collect, map, and analyze this type of data. So I'm really pleased to introduce our two speakers from Esri today. Brian Baldwin joins us as our keynote speaker. In his presentation, Brian's going to share what GIS is, how it can be used across various industries, and his own experience with these tools. Brian currently works at Esri as a lead solution engineer supporting higher education and has been working in the Geographic Information Systems and geospatial industry for more than 15 years. GIS has brought Brian from the frozen tundra of Duluth, Minnesota, to the Big Island of Hawaii and the streets of Milwaukee. Brian teaches GIS at the School of Interactive Games and Media at the Rochester Institute of Technology. Brian has also taught GIS at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and Salem State University. Brian is a proud returned Peace Corps volunteer, father of two, and husband. Ridge serves as the Senior Account Manager for Educational Institutions and supports schools throughout the Northeast United States. In the latter part of the presentation, Ridge will highlight SNHU's institutional licensing to the ArcGIS software and tools and share some of the benefits that Esri serves us here at SNHU. Ridge has always been passionate about supporting the next generation's workforce learn about these digital transformative technologies like GIS And in his role, he supports successful implementation of the ArcGIS platform across academia and smart campus operations, as well as building strong relationships with his user community. Thank you both for joining us. I'd like to hand it over to Brian now for our keynote presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tyra. And just to address in the chat, I think the way to kind of enable the captions, it looks like if you have the settings, you can go to More, Language and Speech, and Show Live Captions if you want to see kind of the language and the transcriptions popping up on the screen. So give that a shot for anybody that needs, or that the description of that is not going to come across, apologies. But if somebody wants to type that in, More, Language and Speech, and show kind of the live transcriptions, that should be kind of what folks are looking for. They'll show live captions. Awesome. So I first wanted to just say, Tyra, Alyssa, Susan, thank you so much for the invites. Thank you for setting this all up. Ridge and I are just really thrilled and excited to be here and kind of walk through this presentation. So I'm going to take about 22, 23 minutes, and my goal is really just to excite you and inspire you, and to show you that even with a lesson or two or a class through SNHU, you can have a really huge impact, using this tool, using these tools and using this technology. And it's been a major part of kind of my life and my professional work, so it's something I'm really, really passionate and excited about. So Tyra gave a little introduction to kind of me and my role, and I wanted to just dive a little bit deeper to kind of just show you, not to talk about myself, but to relate this to you in terms of all of the different things you could do with this technology and the different places it could really take you. So here's a photo of my wife and kids. We love to kind of hike and be outside, and we live up north of Boston, Massachusetts. And how I got started in this was I got a undergraduate degree in geography and history at the State University of New York at Geneseo up near Rochester. And I only took, and I say this all the time, I only took 2 undergraduate courses in GIS throughout my whole kind of career. That was my formal education in GIS. So a lot of my time and work has been kind of work experience, different jobs, internships, and just gaining experience on the job, which I think is a major part of the ways we are going to work now and kind of work going forward. So from there, I went into the Peace Corps, as Tyra mentioned, was in China for a few years, came back and got a graduate degree in urban and regional planning at the University of New Orleans. And again, at that university, I looked around and I was kind of the one that had a little bit of GIS background. And so when maps and that kind of content needed to get created, I was kind of the one to jump in and do it, and had an amazing experience kind of being that one to kind of use that technology and those tools. I lived in Hawaii for about 2 years, short amount of time, doing invasive species mapping. So we were looking at the canopy to see where invasive plants, invasive species were coming in. And the goal was to preserve kind of the native habitat on the Big Island of Hawaii. And then I lived in Milwaukee for a short span of time as a crime analyst. And so this was working with the police department to understand how crime was changing, where it was popping up in the city, and how they could use kind of limited resources to help. And then lastly, I've been at Esri for about 12 years now in a range of different roles. And the title of my role is specifically a solution engineer, which I always tell people is kind of a generalist for the technology. And there's so many different kind of roles and jobs at the company. So you don't need to be a coder or developer. You could be somebody that really knows an industry or knows something else and then is applying it. And then I also teach on the side, so love to kind of do these presentations to students, to faculty, to just show where the technology is going and how it's been used. So for some of you, I know this is starting a little too simplistic, but I just wanted to start at the ground level so we could all be on the same page and dive in from there. So what is a map? And why are we even kind of talking about this, and what's the point of it? So for some of us with a little bit more kind of gray on our beards or in our hair, this is what a map was to us. It's used for travel, driving directions. You had kind of this fold up map, maybe in the back seat of your car. And this is how you kind of got around and, used to navigate, or if you went to a national park or to, somewhere else, you get this paper paper map and it was used for reference. Where are the mountains? Where are the roads? Where are the highways? Something that you could kind of look at and orient yourself for where you were. For all of us, this is really, I'd say, what a map is today. It's Google Maps. I use this every day to get to restaurants or get to the grocery store. We use this to kind of drive even to places we already know so that we can see real-time traffic and see what's going on. So this kind of visualization shows us just where things are. It's a reference map. But maps can be so much more than just used for reference. You can put so much more additional information into these displays and onto these. So in this example, I've got that same reference map kind of on the bottom, and I've added this kind of purple blob on top of that reference layer. So in the chat, if anybody has an idea of what this might be, drop it into the chat, because I'd love to know if people have an idea of what kind of we're trying to display here on the map. So again, more than just kind of where things are, we can also start to analyze data and put additional information onto a map to learn more about a specific location. Let's see, I'm trying to scroll down here. Oh, good. Theo said flood areas. Someone else said flood zone. Yep, a lot of folks said flood zones. Great. So that purple blob we're looking at is a layer of information that is telling us the percent chance that that area could flood. It's basically saying there's a 1% chance this area of kind of coastal Massachusetts could flood. And there's layers and data available for this across the whole country. So a map can kind of bring in that additional kind of information. That's just one example. The other thing I wanted to reinforce and kind of talk about when we think of a map is that a map is not the truth. A map is something that is built out and created by somebody, and they're putting their own ideas and putting their own spin on the ways that the information is presented. So always keep that in mind. Whenever you're looking at a map or other information, who was the individual or who is the entity that created this, and what information are they trying to present? So this map here, there's two different ones of the same area, and this is just screenshots again from Google Maps. And all I've done here is change the settings for the locale of where I am in the world. On one side, I'm in India. On the other side, I'm in China. And you can see those dotted lines on the map that are on the left-hand side, and those kind of borders have been taken away on the other side. So again, there's not, borders kind of carved into the earth. These lines aren't physical things. But when we put them on a map, there's going to be different ways to present this information, depending on who the audience is and who the person is that's designing that information. Another one that I love as an example of this that came out in the news recently in the last year was this one. So on the all far left-hand side, we're logged into Google Maps from Mexico. In the middle, we're logged into Google Maps in the UK. And on the far right, we're logged into Google Maps in the States. And so we can kind of create a map or a visualization, but the data, the ways we present information can also change dramatically depending on where we are, who we're presenting information to, and really how it's meant to be perceived. Because these aren't kind of hardline borders and lines, it's us kind of making the decisions for how we're going to depict that information. Yeah, somebody, Madison, exactly. Just like the equator. If I walk through, Equatorial Guinea or somewhere else, along the equator, I'm not going to see a line there. And same thing with the prime meridian. I remember being in the UK a number of years back. Actually, that's a bad example because they put a line on the ground right at where the prime meridian is in a couple places, which is pretty funny. So that is kind of what a map is. It's used to present information. It can be for reference. It can also present additional data or have thematic layers. So what is a GIS? That's what we're here to kind of talk about today. And the acronym stands for a Geographic Information System. So what that means is it's basically, software, people. It's a way to organize the data, analyze information, and create maps. So it's the tools and the process to build out those kind of maps and that kind of analysis that we could present to people. So here is that same map we looked at before, and now I'm going to think about this in the lens of a GIS, where this map is nice. It presents a good visual to let me know where these flood areas are, but I want to see a little bit more information here. And so now on the map, I've dropped in a little bit more data. Does anybody have an idea on what those kind of yellow boxes are that we're looking at, that have been added to the map now? Oh, great question, Danielle, saying healthcare services. Are there any organizations you know of using GIS in new ways? There's so many, and I can send some articles and some things we'll drop into the chat to show you. Perfect. People are dropping in infrastructure, buildings in the flood zone. Perfect. So somebody said those are the buildings in the flood zone. So this is a map to visualize this, but what a GIS does, and my favorite way to kind of illustrate this is it's about getting actionable information out of the map or out of the visuals. So we know where the flood zone is. We know what buildings are going to be impacted, but more than that, I know how many buildings. And the thing for me that I like to start thinking about, and if you think of being a mayor or a planner or a local government official or really anybody in this vicinity that might be impacted by flooding, these are the kinds of questions they're going to start asking and want to know the answers to. So within that area that might flood and those buildings are going to flood, how many people live here? How many seniors live in this area? Where are the closest shelters? How many kids live in this area? How many businesses will be impacted? What languages are spoken at home? What families don't have access to a vehicle? So if you're thinking of this area flooding, what are those kinds of things you might have to plan for or get services for, etc.? So these are the kinds of things that GIS can start to answer and provide information so that you can do actionable things with it. Because the map is great, but we can get all of this additional information using the data and analysis to really kind of make a change and have a big impact. In just one example from my own personal experience, so I was down in New Orleans for about 2 years during graduate school, and this was 2 years after Hurricane Katrina took place. So I was there from about '07 to kind of '09, 2010, and there was still a lot of recovery taking place in the city. And so this picture was taken shortly after the storm happened, and it just gives you this incredible visual for how dramatic the flooding was and what the impact was in New Orleans. And so about 4 months after the storm came through, this map was released. And this map on it has these green circles you can see kind of placed throughout the city. And so at the time, planners, the mayors, at the federal level, everyone was wondering, what is the recovery of New Orleans even going to look like? And this was one of those initial maps that was released as an idea for an initial plan. Oh, awesome, Madison said. I've watched a documentary on this on Netflix. So this map caused a firestorm where this was released, and it just turns out that a number of those green circles dropped on the map, which were saying that these areas of the city should be kind of not rebuilt. Maybe they should just be areas where flooding can kind of naturally take place and we'll have green space come in. But it just so happens that those areas were predominantly African American. There's one neighborhood here that was a predominant kind of Vietnamese, East Asian community. And there weren't green circles put on some similar neighborhoods that were predominantly kind of white neighborhoods that had the same level of flooding. And so what this did is it inspired residents and neighborhoods to go out and actually create their own maps and their own visuals to show what recovery could look like and what was happening in New Orleans. So more than just kind of people creating the maps and building this information out, GIS today has been about how can we get these tools, these resources, this technology into anybody's hands. And that's what I've loved to see over the past, 10, 15 years in my job and in my time kind of in this field, is that we have really kind of democratized the way this technology can be used by anyone. So one short story I love to use as well to kind of drive home the power of GIS. So I've got a picture up on the screen of the Amazon rainforest. And so this is how we all kind of picture this idyllic, space many times in our heads. But the reality is there has been a lot of deforestation that has taken place, and there's a lot of spots where clear cuts just come in and end up creating this patchwork across the forest. And so one of the spaces that I wanted to have us kind of fly and zoom into is this town, and I always apologize for this. I don't know how to pronounce this. I will say Apui or Pue. But if you know the pronunciation, please send my apologies to anyone who knows how to say this small spot in the Amazon, the Brazilian rainforest. So let's zoom into this one location. And so using satellites, we can fly over and have a look at, how places have changed and what things look like on the ground. And so using this satellite, we're taking pictures all the time. There's a constellations of satellites out there doing this. And so here's this area of Brazil in 2014 and what it looked like. And so you can see the road coming through, you can see these other kind of roads going north and south, and these kind of patchwork of really ranch land is what kind of happens a lot of the times here. They'll clear cut and they'll have kind of cattle come in and do ranching. And so here's what this area looks like in 2022. And so from 2014 to 2022, this is just a 6-year span of time. You can see the dramatic change that has kind of taken place in this area. And so mapping is about, and a GIS is about kind of getting these visuals, but it's also about storytelling, which is something that I really like to reinforce to students and educators as well, is that these kinds of visuals create an amazing impact for us emotionally because it really tells the story and drives it home in so many ways. Oh my God, Caroline, thank you so much. Apui, awesome. Really appreciate it. I will now know how to say it from here on out. That is fantastic. Thank you. So some of you might know of or be aware of the Adirondacks up in upstate New York. And if you're not, it's a large tract of land that is a mix of, privately held state forest land, etc. But the goal of that area is to have this kind of well-preserved forest ecosystem. So it's not pristine by any extent, but it's a beautiful patchwork of kind of preserved land, waterways, etc. And it covers about 18,000 square miles in New York State. To drive that story home of the Amazon a little bit more, so what is happening in 2021 and 2022 is there were about 3,000 square miles a year cleared of the Amazon rainforest. And so if we kind of take that 3,000 square miles and visualize it and put it on top of the Adirondacks, again, something me and others kind of in the States can imagine a little bit better, this is what that would look like. And so if we take that and we multiply it by 6 to say over that 6-year span of time that I just kind of showed from 2014 to 2022, we would literally see that entire area of upstate New York completely deforest in that span of time. So with that one simple visual here, we're able to take some numbers that we could pull from a GIS to say this is that impact, and then show that visually related to that local area or somewhere else where we can drive that home in a much more kind of emotional, impactful way for people. So something I wanted to do here very quickly is actually show you a tool you have access to where you can do this same thing that I just built out, in that example. So I'm inside of a browser now, and this is an application that Esri provides to let users go and look at all of the historical Landsat information that's available. If you click the little About button up at the top, it tells you the Landsat program began in 1972. So since then, there have been images kind of been taken of the globe, and we have all of this imagery available to us to go explore. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to search. You look at my pronunciation key, Apui, and we'll zoom into that location and we're going to see how this area has changed. And we're going to look at kind of any imagery that I want to. So the application tries to make this as easy as possible. So over on the bottom left hand, you can explore, you can create swipes, you can animate, you can also analyze. So I'm going to hit find a scene on the bottom here, and I'm going to start by scrolling back in time, and I'm going to go to about 25 years ago. So let's go to the year 2000. And if I scroll down here, you can see we can go all the way back to 1982. If I select 2000 down at the bottom, it tells me here are images that are available for me to kind of look at and load into the map. And I'm looking for one that's got kind of less cloud cover. So I'm going to actually go to 2001. And here we go. I'm going to click this time in July 8th, 2001. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And here is imagery showing me this area of Brazil. And so I'm looking at this image that was taken about 20, 25 years ago. And let's say I want to compare this to what this looks like today. So I'm going to click here, this little swipe button, and I've got my left side selected. I'm now going to pick the right, and I'm going to grab an image from the last couple months. And let's get this one because it's got kind of low cloud cover as well. And that one's a little dark. And then another thing I can do with all of these is you have the ability as well to put these kind of filters onto the data to kind of see how this has changed and not only kind of visualize the color of that imagery, but also see where these kind of patchworks of changes in these locations have kind of taken place. And let's make sure we're in the right spot. There we go. Funny, I was in a different Apui. So we will zoom in a little bit here. And I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'm going to pick some imagery for this location. And let's pick one for the other side. And there we go. So as we zoom in here, we're looking at the change in kind of agricultural land and this kind of growth in the patchwork over that area. And down on the bottom, I'm going to click Analyze. And I actually want to look at the change in the vegetation that has occurred here. So this gives me the ability in an on-the-fly way to kind of see the change between these two time spans. So down on this bottom, I've selected Analyze, Change Detection. I'm going to pan this to kind of show me where these kind of places in this imagery have lost vegetation. And so just like that, I'm able to look at decades of imagery, see what kind of change has taken place, and actually summarize this. And it's saying the estimated change area is almost 3,000 square kilometers of kind of loss that I'm looking at. So you have access to that tool and you can explore that at will. And there's so much more that you can do with it. So there's three examples I wanted to mention really, really quickly here, and different ways kind of people are using GIS and geospatial. So this is one that was from Vermont, and honestly, the University of Vermont that did a lot of this work. So in 2023, there was major flooding that kind of impacted the state of Vermont. And some of the first people on the ground with drones capturing the imagery to show that impact were students at the University of Vermont. And they were actually sharing this with FEMA and with other organizations to show what that impact looked like so that people could start that recovery process as soon as possible. The next example is the student, Miela Su, who took it upon herself to create these safer walking and biking routes in her school district in California. And so something that she saw as this major issue was that there was a lot of drop-offs happening, school, cars, etc., and there were no good routes for them to kind of be able to safely navigate their path. And so she ended up building out these safe routes, sharing it with council members, with the mayors, with the school district, and actually taking action upon herself to build that. And the last example is from Doctors Without Borders. And they use GIS and they use these tools for so many different things to plan and manage health services delivered across the globe. And in just one example that I wanted to highlight, they used GIS to use this for kind of vaccination for yellow fever. So in just 10 days in 2016, they went through Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo and tracked their door-to-door campaign for who was vaccinated against yellow fever. And so they're using this on the ground with real-time information to see what that kind of impact is. So GIS is being used to see where things are, as we saw with some of those early maps. It's being used to look at what the patterns are. How are things changing? How are things related to each other? It's also used to make predictions. So if we know what an impact is in a certain area and that happens time and time again, we can understand that maybe there's a relationship between some of those factors. And then, as I've talked about here a couple times, and hopefully you saw, it's most importantly used when we can use the tools to take action and do something with it. And so GIS is being used in so many different amazing ways today, to create these interactive maps that people can just use and ask questions of and get information. They're using it for imagery and remote sensing, as you saw with that example from the Amazon. And also there's all of these kind of AI tools to understand how changes are happening in data and get results kind of faster to users. One of the things we're going to drop into the chat and I want to share with everybody is that there's all of this content available as well that you can just start using and have access to. So if you want to know where stream gauges are across the US and what flooding looks like in real time, you can just add that to a map. If you want demographic data and you want to add that into a map, that's available to you as well. There's all of this data just ready to use, ask questions of, and analyze. And there's all of these resources and learning tools available, from tutorials, training, etc. So at SNHU, you have some amazing professors and faculty offering classes. So I definitely, give you the advice to sign up for a class and take something if any of this kind of interests you at all. And everything I showed to you today, you have access to through the SNHU kind of campus license. And Ridge will dive into specifically kind of what some of those tools are available to you. Oh, and the last piece I wanted to say on this is we've got a kind of hands-on workshop taking place this afternoon. So please definitely go, because we are going to dive into one of those and you'll be able to actually use some of the tools like that we looked at with that change detection and how you could actually, build something out to make a real impact. So to close out, and let's zoom back to the Amazon for 2 seconds. There was a company called United Cacao that was listed on the London Stock Exchange and was a kind of a chocolate company. And so one of the ways I wanted to highlight for how GIS has and can have a real world impact is that someone was kind of looking at imagery and doing almost the same exact thing that we were doing across the Peruvian rainforest, this area that was preserved. You could think of it being in a national park. And someone noticed this. They saw this change over time where this one area was completely clear cut. They said, what's happening here? They went ahead and they summarized that change. So they said, this is the amount of carbon loss that happened in that specific area. And what happened is they were able to delist that company. A number of those members of that company were arrested and were tried for, breaking the laws in Peru. And so GIS and a couple of these people were able to use these tools to actually have this major impact and then reforest and preserve, some of these pristine ecosystems. And there's people doing things like this across the world in any industry you can imagine today. So anything you're interested in or have a passion for, you could start diving in and doing something similar. And so I will stop there. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of present and share my passion for this. Again, we have an amazing kind of hands-on session in the afternoon. There'll be a panel after that as well to kind of show what's happening and how people are using these tools. But if you have questions or if you want to reach out, please just shoot a note to me. I'd love to interact with you and see how kind of you're using the technology or how you want to. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Brian. We do have a little bit more information to share. So if you're able to stick around, I'm really excited to share that Ridge is going to walk us through SNHU has a partnership with Esri, and every student, faculty, and staff member have access to these amazing tools. And as Brian shared, a lot of this data, a lot of the imagery is widely available to the public to be able to be used. So we're just going to talk through a little bit about how SNHU offers these different benefits to you all, and showcase all the ways that you can get involved and start to work on ArcGIS. So thank you both very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Thank you, Tyra. I'm going to get into some more of the mechanical part of what you have access to. And I did want to just share a little bit about my background and why I think it's interesting in terms of like how I got into this role and why I enjoyed so much. So I'm gonna just tell you that I'm one of the rare people that that work at Esri that doesn't have a geography degree or a GIS degree. So what I did study in my undergrad was information science, and I then transferred into a business school and did management information science. But at the end of the day, GIS is an information science, and I wish I was exposed to it in my business curriculum and my information science curriculum, because it's such a powerful tool and a great experience I had working at Esri with this technology is, let me share my screen, and I am going to ask everyone if they are familiar with, and let me just make sure that my screen is, I'm sharing the right screen. Okay, so can everyone see my screen okay? Awesome. So how many of you are familiar with this particular image? And although it's an image we may not want to remember, because it was from a time in our lives that we were all, you know, told to stay inside and not interact with one another, but how many of you are just familiar with this particular image and what it's displaying? So I'd be curious to see the responses. Hopefully you all are very familiar with it. But this was a dashboard that was made famous by a graduate student at Johns Hopkins who started to use our Esri technology to map the cases as they unfolded in his home country. Why was this exciting for me? So so at the end of the day, this was one of Esri's most virally hit websites. And what does that why is that important? Well, it's important for a lot of reasons, because when your technology is getting that much attention and that much traffic, you really need to make sure that you have the infrastructure to support. And when I say infrastructure, it's more the bandwidth. You really need to make sure that your technology can support all those web hits. And I was involved in making sure that this site didn't crash. So I was working with Johns Hopkins. I was working with Esri product development folks on the ArcGIS Online team. But this is an ArcGIS Online dashboard. And this is a tool that you all can create on your own, leveraging your SNHU agreement. So I just wanted to share that little story, and it's one of my, you know, what I'll call my claim to fame is supporting the work I do here at Esri with education, and this by far was one of Esri's from a marketing perspective. It was a great you know, unfortunate that it was all due to a situation that we all don't want to remember or never want to repeat again. But it was, for me, it was like such a pivotal part in my career. So, and then prior to coming to Esri, I worked at an engineering design software firm. So I studied information science. I knew I wanted to get into technology. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to also understand how it works on the back end, and how you know the business is applied, how the challenges in business, and not just business but also conservation, biodiversity, how GIS is solving all these challenges is really exciting. So so that's a little bit about me and why I'm passionate about working in this role, and the experience I get to have supporting universities on the academic side that are using it for teaching and research, but also operations as well. So so basically what I'm going to go through today is this wonderful tool that Brian had built. It's an experience builder application. It talks a little bit about what you have access to. So I think Brian did a great job of introducing who Esri is, and as well as Tyra is talking about our company and what we do. But we are part of a larger education team here at Esri, and our education team here at Esri is comprised of 5 account managers, 2 SEs, and we support and work with all of the institutions in higher education in K through 12. So we're part of global business development. We have a team that is dedicated to each region. We have an industry that's dedicated to K through 12 and higher education. So as this populates, and I'm glad I kind of preloaded some of these, but yeah, we are here to support the overall mission of getting GIS ingrained into education. And it's not, traditionally it's been geography programs. It's also been a bit environmental science and forestry, but we're trying to grow GIS exposure into data science programs and engineering programs and business programs. There's a natural need for spatial literacy in those disciplines in academia. So this is just our team. As you can see, I'm one of 5 account managers. We have a team lead, Justin, and then we have Brian, who's our lead solution engineer. We have Rena, and then we are supported by the Esri Professional Services. And then our industry team is also working on the marketing side and supporting K through 12. So that's a little bit about our team. And then this particular agreement is also, what we encourage is we encourage anyone that wants to learn GIS to get involved in our community. So when you go into if you become part of the higher ed community, and this is where to register yourself and subscribe to this particular forum, you're getting the opportunity to interact with not just folks that work at Esri that are on our team and our industry team, but also users. And that includes, folks at other universities that are, teaching GIS, supporting it administratively. So this is a great community, and this presence has grown from a subscriber perspective over the years. And this is something that I definitely encourage those of you that are really wanting to get into the world of GIS, and as you study it in your classes, please, I can't stress the value that this community has. So again, that's a being part of this agreement, you're entitled to join this community. So and then what we're going to do here is we're going to quickly go through some of these other tiles. But really, we create a lot of materials for teaching and research. So this here is just describing what it is. What is ArcGIS? So ArcGIS is really technology that can be accessed in an online web format. It's a desktop software that you can download to your machine. And then we have something called Enterprise, which is for larger organizations that have tons of geospatial data that they need to manage, and they host that on their servers. So within this particular agreement that you have with SNHU as a student, and the benefits you have, we really give you like 90% of our platform. Anything that we can give away in this programmatic offering, we give it away. So essentially, ArcGIS Online is your what I'll call the easiest pathway to entry. It's what we recommend to any beginner that just wants to do some basic map making, allow you to visualize spatial data. So ArcGIS Online, there is a number of named user accounts. It does require that you have a named user account. So Tyra's going to get into how those accounts get created on the back end at SNHU in a little bit, but it's basically associated with your email. So once you have an existence and an account, you can begin leveraging ArcGIS Online. So ArcGIS Online has some instant apps. The dashboards, like the one I shared, story maps are very popular. As Brian talked about, GIS is not just making a map and looking at data, it's telling a story. And story maps is one of our most widely successful consumed applications. ArcGIS Online is a great presenting and sharing tool, as you saw with the dashboard and the example that I used earlier. We also have field collection tools. So field maps, Survey 123, Quick Capture, you can download those on your Android or Apple device. And the same way you log into ArcGIS Online, you log in on the phone, and then you begin collecting data. So this is an experience that we recommend for anyone that's like teaching in the field and wants to get their students out of the classroom. I know you guys are an online institution, but maybe your professor can give you an assignment based on collecting data in your own specific geography. And then we have specialized applications that are built for urban planning and design, business analyst, which is just a ton of consumer information and customer segmentation data. ArcGIS notebooks kind of get you into that programming world. If you're into that open source Python coding world, and then Hub is a community engagement site that we recommend for research projects. A lot of universities have these, states have them for their geospatial data. And then desktop software. So ArcGIS Pro, it's our flagship desktop software. It too is accessed through an identity that you share with ArcGIS Online, and your data can be shared between ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Pro through the cloud. So ArcGIS Pro has over 500 analytical features, and you don't need to be an expert in all of them, but the idea here is that if you're going to be a GIS professional and you're going to be creating some very detailed maps and doing some hardcore analysis and getting into geo AI tools and stuff like that, you would use ArcGIS Pro. And then we have applications specific to remote sensing and imagery. Obviously, the ability to fly drones has gotten easier. A lot of people are getting their drone licenses. They're collecting images. Like the Vermont example, Brian. So it's very easy to bring and digest those images into ArcGIS. And then City Engine is an urban planning type tool that gets into some 3D, and we're really seeing the world of engineering and GIS merge. And the engineers are designing these as-built structures, and they can produce their designs in 3D. We can consume them in our maps. So the world of GIS and CAD, which is a software for engineering design, they're coming together and making data interoperability really possible in terms of sharing their information. So I won't get into enterprise software too much. It's just a behemoth GIS system that is digesting tons and tons of geospatial data. And again, it can be related to images. It can be related to real-time like live data feeds. Like, a good example would be, if you go to Harvard's map, they have buses like driving in the map. That's through a application called GeoEvent, which it takes real-time data feeds and brings them live to your map right away in real time. So that's just from a licensing perspective. I'm going to let Tyra get into that in more detail, but again, I mentioned it's all named users. There's plenty of named user accounts to go around for faculty and students there, and then you can install ArcGIS Pro on your PC. It's not built for Apple devices. But you can make Apple devices recognize it. You just have to either access a virtual machine or build a parallel PC program that you can run on your Apple device. So we're really kind of like encouraging academic use to be broad, and we don't want to limit, by no means, we don't want to limit any student from accessing our technology. If you're a part of a student, let's just say you're not even taking a class, but you're generally interested in GIS, you can get an account, So academic use is for all the faculty and students. We also have a separate type of allocation of licenses that are performed for like administrative offices, facilities planning. So, and again, I know SNHU has a small campus presence, but that's something that we support as a team. So I'm going to let Tyra get into the way that you can access your own licenses, but I do want to just quickly go into some of the resources. Brian had shared these, and you know what we're seeing here as this displays is these are a lot of resources that are they're essentially getting into how is this technology applied to solve challenges that our world is facing. And what's great about this one is this one here. I just particularly I filtered. You can filter by product, by department, but these are just a lot of like higher education stories that myself, Brian, have supported working with these institutions, talking about how their students have learned from the technology, and really it's a great resource to kind of dive into different disciplines as well and industries. So you can filter by department, you can filter by capability, you can filter by product if you depending on. So each of these will kind of pull up a story that you can read and learn from in terms of a an experience that these universities had with our technology. So the other resource I wanted to share is just this. Oops. So there's two training resources that you have. There's Esri Academy, and the Esri Academy is our training division that delivers instructor-led training, but they also create on-demand training. So on-demand training is do-it-yourself kind of learning on your own time. So they have built learning plans that are very specific to a product of ours. So again, I don't want to spend too much time in here going through this website, but it's pretty easy to navigate. Again, you have access to anything that's considered on-demand e-learning. And if anyone wanted to take an instructor-led course, those have cost because there's more hard cost to us, but you do get a discount in education. So, and then the other resource that I wanted to share is, and let me just move this here. We have a tutorial gallery called learn.arcgis.com. And this is actually produced by Esri software development team, but it's a great resource in that it's giving you the pre-built data models already. So what's nice about this is that you can filter by topic. So let's say that you're a oceanographer and you're like, oh, I want to know, I want to do a lesson on oceanography and how GIS was applied to that particular topic. And then let's say that you're a business student and you're interested in real estate and you want to learn about how real estate and the use of business analysts can be applied to solving real estate business problems and understanding where to build the next Chick-fil-A or things like that. So this is a great resource that we really promote to educators that are like looking for help and also to students. So so finally, I just want to share like a story that literally this was hot off the press. So this is a university that I support, UMass Amherst nearby, Brian, but we as we encourage students and professors to participate in the community, we ask students to kind of write their own articles and their own experience with what they're studying. And in this particular case, Ava is a undergrad student or graduate student at UMass Amherst, and she walked around her campus doing a walk for light, and she built this application. It's an event that is supporting the community, but yeah, maybe one day you could find yourself being an author of one of these stories if you're really passionate about this subject. So and we encourage students to write blogs like this all the time, and And yeah, this is a great one that kind of merges the world of what she was learning in undergrad and campus safety, which is an operational need at university. So I am going to stop, and I will hand things over to Tyra, and hopefully you understand the resource you have available to you, and the tools that you have accessible to you through this partnership with Esri and SNHU. And Tyra is going to get into the details of how you can get signed up. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ridge. Really appreciate all the support and making sure that this partnership was successful. This is a big venture this year for us to have free persistent access for all students, faculty, and staff. So if you are enrolled in a GIS course, wonderful. You know that you've got access to these tools. If you're not, Alyssa is putting the link there in the chat. It's as simple as using your SNHU credentials. So the same way you log into your email, it's single sign-on, so it should be one click after you've logged in once. And you can log in through the web browser for ArcGIS Online, which we will do and walk through all together during the workshop at 3 if you're able to join us. And also, again, download ArcGIS Pro to your desktop. So we're really excited to be rolling this information out to you all. Alyssa also shared a link to where you can access this at any time. So there is a page that is built through the Shapiro Library. It's also available on SNHU's Career 360 site. So this lives with all of kind of the information, some kind of standard tutorials that you might want to access, and of course that link to get logged in. And if you have any questions, we've got support through ITS if you have any questions. All right, I'll pass it over to Alyssa then before we close out. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyra. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for, first and foremost, this is such a wonderful session. I'm learning a ton. So thank you to Ridge and Brian for sharing all this wonderful information. I'll be quick. My name's Alyssa. I work on the career services team here at SNHU. So those who have not heard about career services, we are a free career advising and career exploration service for our current online students and a free lifetime service for all of our alums and graduates. So whether you're starting a new career or advancing in your field, our team can help you in many ways. So please don't hesitate to start exploring your career options now. You can check out our dedicated website, Career 360, where you can explore our dedicated environmental science and geoscience career page. And of course, you can also email or call to be connected to a personal career advisor anytime to receive more personal career advice. And lastly, I want to take a moment to plug in some few upcoming other career events that are happening that might be of interest to you. So for example, if you are a veteran or military spouse, you might be interested in our Veterans and Military Spouse Career Success Series that's happening today as well as tomorrow on November 14th. So I'll be adding a link to that event. In case you're interested, you can register to attend and find out more. And all of these events as well will be recorded. So with that, Tyra, I will turn it back to you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for your partnership on this event. We're so excited to be able to bring this to you all. So thank you, Alyssa. Thank you so much to our speakers, Brian and Ridge, and for everyone who joined us. We'd love for your feedback on this presentation if you want to use the QR code there at the top of the screen to fill out a brief survey to share your thoughts. And then finally, we continue our GIS Day celebration, as I mentioned, at 3 p.m. With a hands-on beginners workshop. There's no experience needed prior to attending. We're going to be working through one of those fun tutorials focused on volcano shelter access in Hawaii. So I'll be able to use some of this GIS technology that's shown today. We really hope to see you there. And then to wrap up our celebration at 6 p.m., we'll have a Careers in GIS panel session. We'll have employers, SNHU alumni, and faculty there to share their career journeys using GIS. So there's still time to register. All of those links are in the chat to join. But thank you all again once so much for attending. I really appreciate the enthusiasm, the participation, and again to our speakers. So thank you all for the folks at Esri and everyone who attended today.
So thank you so much, everybody.